Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Seagull Ocean Series reference 816321523A. This watch is available from seagullwatchofficial.com for $349 which is €297 respectively. Seagull have a rich brand heritage. They were founded in 1955 in Tianjin in China, so this year in 2025 they celebrate their 70th anniversary. This piece, the Ocean Series, is available in three colour options: blue, green and red respectively. Of the three colour options, I think this blue version is the best looking. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this blue cardboard watch box, which is protected by a blue cardboard sleeve. So one removes the sleeve, and this is the blue cardboard watch box itself. On the lid, we have the Seagull emblem and Seagull text logo in silver. One removes the cardboard lid. And in the base, we have this foam panel with a cutout which houses the warranty card and also owner's instruction manual leaflets. So one removes this, has a ribbon pull on it to make it easier to withdraw, so that's good attention to detail. In the base, there are foam panels which have cutouts in the shape of a watch, and this does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. So although basic, it does suffice, but however, I think it's disappointing to see a cardboard watch box used at this price point in the low tier. Low tier is €0 to €500 at $349 or €297. One would expect a leather or PU leather vinyl watch roll, or alternatively a plastic watch box which is vinyl coated. Cardboard watch boxes are okay, they're the industry standard for low tier Chinese pieces between €0 and €100, but when one gets to €297 respectively, better quality watch boxes are to be expected. With regards to the items that come in the piece, it also comes with this leaflet which you open, and it details two things: the owner's instruction manual and also the terms and conditions of the 2-year international warranty. So it's bilingual, both in Mandarin, and on the reverse it has the exact same in English, which is good. Now, there are various QR codes, so you scan the QR codes with your Android or iPhone, and that will download videos which explain the operation of the movement use, which is the Seagull Caliber ST2130 automatic. And on the last page, there's a QR code for the warranty. So again, you can scan the QR code with your Android or iPhone. That will activate the 2-year international warranty from the date of purchase, and also detail the terms and conditions of the 2-year international warranty. I want to give due credit to Seagull here, because often low-tier Chinese brands between €0 and €500 respectively, they only cover their watches with a 12-month international warranty. To get 2 years of international warranty is excellent, and they deserve full credit for that. So one also gets this cardboard tag, and it has the full reference number of the blue version of the Ocean Series, as well as the price in Chinese yen, and also it says Seagull since 1955, because as I've detailed, this year they celebrate their 70th anniversary. There's also a QR code which can be scanned on the reverse, and we've got Seagull Ocean Series in Mandarin characters in red. And lastly, one also gets this plastic bracelet resizing tool, and this does suffice in pushing out the push pins in the oyster style bracelet. It's made from plastic and it has a steel pin which is black PVD coated, and it does work to an OK standard. It does suffice in resizing the bracelet, so good to get that included. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, now I want to clarify something about the case diameter. Firstly, on the Seagull website, seagullwatchofficial.com, they state this as 44mm diameter, but that's actually erroneous. I've measured it as always with my digital caliper vernier to check it, because often on websites and also AliExpress listings, they contain errors in the specifications. So I measure and weigh every single piece I review, and I've reviewed over 500 pieces on my channel. So the actual case diameter is not 44, it's 43mm. The bezel overhangs, so the bezel is larger at 43.8. It's 0.4mm overhang on the left-hand flank, 0.4mm overhang on the right-hand flank respectively. So 43mm case, 43.8 bezel respectively, not the 44 stated. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 49.8mm, a thickness of 12.8mm, and a lug width of 22mm. The oyster-style bracelet tapers from 22mm at the lugs down to 20mm at the flip-lock 2-button push clasp. Now, I think they've made a mistake here. There are two industry standards which you'll know from my previous reviews. 20 to 16 is one industry standard which is often used on 39 and 40mm heads of pieces. It is perfection personified, which I often refer to. The alternative industry standard for larger pieces that are 41, 42 and 43 for example is 22 to 18. This uses a less popular bracelet taper of 22 to 20. Now the problem with that is the bracelet looks very straight and parallel. It adds a lot of meat to it. It is already a hefty piece due to the 43mm head of the piece, and of course that compounds the heavy bracelet. I think 22 to 18 would look better and also reduce a lot of the meat, therefore enhancing comfort level and feel good factor. 22 to 20 doesn't have enough of an aggressive taper. It looks very straight and parallel. However, this is subjective. Some collectors might like that, particularly if you have a larger wrist and you enjoy wrist presence and a lot of heft. 2-button push flip lock clasp, signed with a Seagull emblem and Seagull text logo with high definition engraving. However, very light gauge. This kind of pressed flip lock clasp was the industry standard in the 1990s through to the early 2000s. But then from 2010 onwards, the industry standard became solid milled 316L grade stainless steel clasp. And now in 2025, the industry standard has become micro adjustment clasp with ratcheting mechanisms, alternatively a glide lock style clasp, but nonetheless solid milled bodies versus this light gauge of pressed stainless steel. 3 micro adjustment holes in the flanks really is the minimum. I'd like to see a longer clasp, solid mill body with 5 holes in the flanks. That would better allow for fine-tuning the fits because we don't have any half links on the 6 and the 12 o'clock side of the oyster style bracelet, so it's hard to get the correct fit. 3 doesn't really give enough adjustment and it's very light gauge. This is disappointing. This does not say to me low tier piece costing €297. Now one could be magnanimous if this were below €100. One would have to expect some production cost cutting measures, but at €297, other low tier Chinese brands are offering solid milled micro adjustment clasps which are far higher quality. Seagull really need to update this. This really says to me 1990s to early 2000s. It doesn't say to me 2025 specification. They really need to change it. But in terms of finishing, beautiful luster to the body and beautiful luster to the flanks. No sharp edges to the undercuts to the flanks, no sharp corners, and the top edge and the low edge don't have any sharp edges, so it has been deburred and chamfered to a good standard. Flip lock is light gauge, 2-button push triggers are correctly proportioned, no sharp edges. It does suffice, but I think it's disappointing. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside and a Cyclops magnifier which only has 1.5 times magnification. This is the same level of magnification used by Steinhardt on the Ocean 139 and Ocean 142 respectively. And when I reviewed the Ocean 139 Starbucks version, I was critical of it. 1.5 times magnification really is negligible in terms of improving the legibility of the date complication. 2.5 times is Rolex level, and it is the industry standard for good reasons, because 2.5 times magnification does enhance the legibility of a date complication, and therefore it has become the industry standard. It's excellent. 1.5 just isn't enough, and as you can see, it really doesn't do a good job of magnifying the Arabic numerals on the date's wheel. They need to upgrade this Cyclops magnifier to 2.5 times to correct the error. On a positive note, the AR coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished syringe handset and the silver mirror polished applied indices. Quality of the mirror polishing to the syringe hands is excellent, so the hands are made from brass, which is laser cut, then nickel plated and polished to give the appearance of stainless steel, but they're actually made from brass, which is nickel plated, as are the indices, and they are mirror polished to a good standard. I like the applied Seagull emblem in silver at 12 o'clock, and the Seagull text logo is printed with high definition crisp font. At the 6 o'clock position, we have an embossed 3D star, which is aesthetically pleasing, and Divers 200M automatic, just the right amount of information. There's no unnecessary text or specification. It looks balanced, and I like it. Silver frame around the date complication is too large. Problem with this deep, wide, large silver frame is that it creates a shadow around the white date wheel with black Arabic numerals, and of course this therefore compounds the legibility problem because we only have 1.5 times magnification, but we've also got a shadow permanently cast around the edges of the date framing. They should delete this silver frame. It's too large and it's too deep and it's unnecessary. Doesn't add to the aesthetic of the dial and actually reduces legibility, reduces the readability of the dates. That's the point I'm making. If they deleted the frame around the date window, that would reduce the shadow, improve the legibility, and then of course if they added a 2.5 times magnification cyclops, this would really enhance the piece. The applied indices are correctly proportioned, and I like the symmetry, and also the double applied indices at 12 give good balance and also good orientation. So this Ocean series, as I've detailed, is available in 3 colour options: blue, green and red. This blue version, which is rather like Tiffany blue, is the best looking. Made in China, printed on the dial with high definition printing at 6 o'clock. And of course, Chinese made wouldn't fit very well as per Swiss made, so they're right to put made in China versus Chinese, because Chinese wouldn't fit between the 6 and 7 o'clock indices on the dial. So the minute ticks are black and they are printed with high definition printing, so it's good. The dial execution is excellent, they just simply need to delete the silver frame. Indices are good, handset is correctly proportioned. The tip of the syringe minute hand extends all the way to the black minute ticks on the chapter ring, so the hand is wide enough and also long enough. The syringe hour hand is also long enough to reach to the tip of the indices, so that's good. The red contrasting arrowhead tip to the sweeping second hand also extends all the way to the chapter ring, so they've got the handset correct. And I want to give credit to Seagull here, because often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to undersize and underproportion the handset, and the hands are too short. For example, the minute hand doesn't reach to the chapter ring, the hour hand doesn't reach to the indices, the second hand doesn't reach to the chapter ring either. These are correct. However, I've noticed that there is a colour tone mismatch with regards to the BGW9 Superluminova. BGW9 is used on the applied indices, also used on the syringe handset. However, on the handset in daylight, it's got a blue tint to it. On the indices, it looks pure white, as it should do. Now, this is detrimental because you really can notice the clash in daylight conditions. It's just a slight blue tint to the BGW9 on the hands, but we don't have the same blue tint to the indices. It wouldn't be so noticeable if they'd had the same blue tint to the indices. It would match and it would actually complement the Tiffany blue colour tone to the dial. But when you have a blue tint to the hands and the indices are white, there is a clash. And they should have made the hands whiter or simply made the indices a blue tint as per the hands. We'll do a lume test and we'll see, is it caused by more layers being applied to the syringe hands versus less layers being applied to the indices. That's often the reason why you get a tint to the lume. When it's pure white on the indices and pure white on the handset, it indicates they both have the same number of layers, 5 to 6 on both. But when you have a darker blue tone on the hands, it indicates 6 layers on the handset and, for example, 5 layers on the indices. We'll test that in the lume test. But dial execution is good, legibility is good, just a shame about the silver framing and the Cyclops magnifier. Bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel, knurled finish to it, and we've also got these flat profiles. Now, although it's low profile and mirror polished, it is grippy and tactile. The scallops aren't sharp, but you can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb, so that's good. Aluminium bezel insert, which is anodised black, 15-minute ticks are indexed, and we've got Arabic numerals at 15, 30 and 45, and also hour markers at the other hour marks. I'm going to be critical of this because we are looking at €297 price points here. The industry standard at this price point in the low tier, between €0 and €500 respectively, is a ceramic bezel insert, fully lumed ceramic bezel insert, or alternatively sapphire bezel insert, regardless. Not aluminium. Aluminium bezel inserts, they do give the piece a vintage aesthetic as per a 1990s piece, for example, but however, in 2025, it has to be one of two choices, ceramic or sapphire crystal. Using an aluminium bezel insert at €297 is a clear production cost cutting measure in order to maximise profit margin per piece, and it is wholly unacceptable. As an alternative to an applied lume pip, at 12 o'clock on the bezel, they have a silver triangle which is inlaid with BGW9. Now, colour tone of the BGW9 internally on the triangle is the same as the white tone on the indices. So they've got the colour tone match between the lume's triangle on the bezel and the dial correct. It's just the hands look more blue tinted, so they need to correct the handset only. The anodising on the aluminium bezel insert is done to a good standard. I like the matte finish of it. It does give the piece a vintage aesthetic. It looks rather like a 1990s piece, but really I'd prefer to see a black ceramic bezel insert and fully inlaid with BGW9. That would really give the piece a higher level finish. So, case is solid 316L grade stainless steel, angular profile to the lugs, brushed satin finish to the top of the lugs, nice large mirror polished bevels which mark the transition between the top of the satin finished lugs and the satin finished case flanks which are longitudinally brushed satin finished to a high standard. Nice large mirror polished bevels which mark the transition and the undercuts to the flanks. They delete the sharp edges. Quality of the finishing to the head of the piece is good. Nice fine grained satin finishing to the top of the lugs and also on the flanks. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. There we are. So satin finishing is good throughout, mirror polishing is good throughout, and the tips of the lugs have been deburred very well with bevels, so therefore no sharp corners. Low profile flanks, bearing in mind it is a large case at 43mm by 49.8, and what I like about it is it's relatively low profile at 12.8. If this were powered by a lower grade of movement, such as the Seiko NH35A, which you'll all be familiar with, this would be 13 plus with 200 meters. So this is the benefit of it being powered by the Seagull caliber ST2130 automatic. It's a thinner caliber than the NH35A, and therefore this piece is only 12.8. which is good. So let's look at the bracelet in detail. Now there's another error, and it's not just the taper, which I've detailed 22 to 20 is too much meat. Male end links. Problem with these male end links, particularly on this long case, which is 49.8. We've got this large rectangle slab in the centre of the male end links, which is mirror polished. Mirror polishing it actually compounds it visually. It looks detrimental because we can now see this large panel. It's rather like a mirror, and it's highly reflective. The problem is it really emphasises that this is a large slab of 316L grade stainless steel in the centre of the end link. They could have used female pivoted end links. This would be beneficial because it would enhance the fit, the comfort level, the feel good factor of this piece. Bearing in mind it does have a long lug to lug of 49.8. It's 1.8mm too long. 48 is the sweet spot. This really should be 1.8 shorter because of course it's intended for collectors with a large wrist of 7 to 8 inches plus. If you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you can rule it out because it's too long and too wide. But nonetheless, female pivoted end links would benefit all wrist sizes, 6 to 7, 7 to 8 inch plus. Male end links really do look abhorrent. You can see far too large. Centre section has this large slab or large rectangle which is mirror polished, which emphasises it's too large. A female pivoted end link with a line across it would break that up, and it would enhance the fit because you can see the problem. The end link doesn't have the same level of articulation as a female pivoted end link, which would pull more snug to the wrist and pivot beneath the tips of the lugs. I'll show you the negative aspect of this in the wrist shots. So you can see they've made a mistake. Also, subjectively, I think this bracelet would look better, regardless of the taper being incorrect. It would look better if it were brushed satin finished throughout, rather than just being brushed satin finished on the outer links and contrasting mirror polishing to the flanks. They've also made a fundamental error, and I'll clarify why it's an error. They've mirror polished the flanks. Now, one could say, well, that matches the centre links. Yes, it does, but the industry standard is like so. If the flanks of a case on the head of a piece are mirror polished, the flanks on the bracelet are mirror polished to match. Mirror polished flanks, mirror polished flanks. If it's longitudinally brushed satin finished on the flanks to the head of the piece, the bracelet flank should also be brushed satin finished. Brushed satin finished flanks to the head, brushed satin finished flanks to the bracelet. What we have here is a clash. We've got a satin finished flank to the head of the piece, but then we've got mirror polished flanks to the bracelet. It doesn't match, does it? Now one could say, well, it matches the centre links, but this gives the piece a real dress watch aesthetic, like a Rolex Datejust, for example. And of course, they have mirror polished centre links, and of course it does work well with a Datejust with an oyster bracelet, but this is not a dress piece, it's a dive piece. They've gone for the tool watch aesthetic of a mirror polished scalloped bezel and an anodised aluminium bezel insert, which is fair enough. But they really should have used brushed satin finished centre links to give it that tool watch aesthetic, because really mirror polished centre links don't look appropriate on a dive piece. Mirror polished flanks are okay if the case is mirror polished on the flanks, but it's not. So that clash really does spoil it. There's another error. I mean, really what we're looking at is mistake after mistake, because the problem is not just the taper 22 to 20, which is far too much meat. Just look at the thickness of the links. These are some of the thickest oyster-style links I have ever seen on a bracelet. They're far too thick. Usually with oyster-style bracelets, they are thicker at the spring bar end. And then the thickness of the links gradually tapers down to the buckle and tang, or alternatively, the flip-lock clasp if it has a bracelet. But the point I'm making is, this doesn't taper down in thickness greatly, because what we've got is far too thick links at the head of the piece, and then they gradually reduce down in thickness. But even down at the flip-lock clasp end, you can see there's far too much meat. They're even far too thick at the flip-lock clasp end. It's just dreadful. And they really should have used a half link on the 6 and a half link on the 12. They have used smaller length links either side, but these aren't half links. And really they're more like 3/4 links. So they really need to use a half link on the 6 and a half link on the 12. The other problem is they've used the production cost cutting measure of push pins, and they haven't used the better quality option, which is pins and collars. They've used split pins, which are the cheapest option that you can have. And this is clearly to reduce production costs per piece and therefore maximise profit margin per piece. The cost of using 1.2 or 1.6mm screw pins is negligible. And certainly in an oyster style bracelet like this, on a €297 price point, it has to be screw pins. This really does need 1.6mm screw pins. If they're going to use push pins, it should be the bare minimum of pins and collars, as per Seiko. Split pins are seen on watches that are Chinese made, low tier, below €100. That's the quality level. It's dreadful. So let's look at the bracelet articulation. Malware links are the incorrect choice. They articulate freely, that's the benefit, but they're sloppy. Dreadful amount of play. Longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play in every single direction. This is very easy to correct, and I'm really going to level criticism at Seagull for this, because they've been making watches since 1955, 70 years of heritage. This is their 70th anniversary. But after 70 years, they're not getting it correct, clearly, because look, it rattles, it's sloppy. One could be magnanimous if this were a low-tier Chinese-made piece, below €100, but it's €297. Compare this to the quality level of San Martin at €297. We're on the cusp of 300 here. Can you imagine a San Martin at €300 with this level of play in the end links? It wouldn't be acceptable. Therefore, you cannot be magnanimous about Seagull doing it at €297, with 70 years of heritage backing the brand up. This is dreadful. This is like a €100 Addis dive piece, or Pagani designed PD1661, that kind of bracelet. So it rattles, it's sloppy, simply down to the hole being drilled oversized diameter and the pin going through it being undersized. So to get a friction interference fit, they simply need to use a larger diameter pin and drill the hole smaller diameter, and therefore that will increase the friction to interference level, which it should be. So it doesn't feel stiff or kink, but it's sloppy. Bracelet is also sloppy. Every single one of the push pin links, which is split pin, which is the cheapest option, rattles. Longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play. It's dreadful. This says to me Addis dive level below €100. It does not say to me €297, 70 years of heritage. On a positive note, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink because of course it's sloppy. The bracelet's links are too loose, but it rattles. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, sloppy. Longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play in every single direction, dreadful. Sloppy bracelet, every single one of the links rattles, every single direction has excess play. Cumulative effect across the length of the bracelet is, you can really feel it's sloppy. Feels like a very worn bracelet. Dreadful. Had they used 1.6mm screw pins, that would have tightened up the tolerances, and of course that would have reduced the slack and the play. It does articulate freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, of course, because it has excess play. Now, on a positive note, quality of the brush satin finishing to the outer links on the top side and the underside is good. Nice fine grained satin finish. No sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge, so it doesn't scratch the wrist. Doesn't feel sharp. That's good. Doesn't pull arm hairs. Quality of the mirror polishing to the centre links is done to a good standard, so that's fair enough. It's good that it's comfortable, that it doesn't pull arm hairs and it doesn't feel sharp, but it's far too thick. Far too thick in thickness, and the taper has too much meat. 22 to 20 looks too straight, as I'll show you in the wrist shot. They really need to refine this bracelet, make it thinner in thickness, 22 to 18 taper, 1.6mm screw pins, and of course a solid milled 316L grade stainless steel ratcheting micro adjustment clasp. All of those things would upgrade it to San Martin €300 level. That's what this is competing against head to head. Right, so let's test the bezel execution. So 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. Nail teeth have been deburred and chamfered very well because they've got a large mirror polished bevel, and we do have flats at 12, 9, 6 and 3, but it is grippy, even wearing a glove. My index finger and thumb can get good purchase on it. Medium firm resistance, rather like a Seiko 5KX. Feels heavier than a San Martin SN017G, which you'll be familiar with, or a Pagani design PD1661, or a steel dive SD1953, which you'll all be familiar with. Heavier resistance, so it feels stiffer. Doesn't feel as tight as a Steinhardt Ocean 139, which is too stiff. It's really more like a Seiko 5KX, which is firm but satisfying. No lateral side-to-side play, no back play whatsoever, which is good. Feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. Doesn't get lighter or heavier. I dislike these flats at 12, 9, 6 and 3. The reason why I dislike them is they don't look aesthetically pleasing. Now they are mirror polished to a good standard, but problem with these flats at 12, 9, 6 and 3 is it makes it slippy at those points. So every quarter, or every 15 minutes if you like, at 12, 9, 6 and 3 on the bezel, you've got these smooth flats. And of course when you try to grip the flats, you slip off with your index finger and thumb. When you're on the nailed sections in between the flats, you can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb. You could get a good grip of it and give it a good turn. And it's necessary because this is a medium firm resistance to it. It's heavier. It's like a 5kx. But if you put your index finger and thumb on the flats at 12, 9, 6 and 3, they slip off. So really, it doesn't add anything to it. Aesthetically, the flats don't look good. Better than scallops all the way around the 360 degrees. The problem is they're slippy. So what they've actually done is they've added 4 slippy sections, 4 flats, which aren't easy to get a grip of at 12, 9, 6 and 3. And alternatively, at the triangle 15, 30 and 45 is the point I'm making. And you just can't get a good grip. That's the truth of it. And doesn't look good, doesn't feel good either. Really, they've made a mistake. They should have just used a nailed bezel through the 360 degrees as per Rolex Submariner date. Then it would be grippy and tactile all the way round, regardless of whether you grip it with your index finger and thumb. At triangle 15, 30, 40 or 12, 9, 6 and 3, you'd get good purchase on it. This just does not satisfy. In terms of execution, it's good, feels even, medium firm resistance, no back play, no lateral side to side. We'll just check the alignments. But I just don't like these 4 slippy sections, the 4 flats. They don't look good and they don't feel good. They're far too slippy. So just bear with me, I'll bring it up one more click. Perfect. So the triangle, which is infilled or inlaid with BGW9, aligns correctly with a double applied 12 o'clock indices on the dial and also the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring. There was also Lume dots on the chapter ring, which we'll test and Lume test. So bezel works well in terms of the play, but just visually, these flats don't add anything to it at 12, 9, 6 and 3 or the triangle 15, 30 and 45 respectively. The mirror polishing is good, but they're just difficult to get a grip of. And really the purpose of a dive bezel is to be grippy and tactile. You should be able to get good purchase on it if you have a glove on the hand or if you have a wet hand, if this is used as a dive watch, which is its intended purpose. Right, so let's look at the bracelet clasp in detail. So 2-button push flip lock clasp, which is dreadful. It's abhorrent. 3 micro adjustment holes aren't enough. Light gauge, it's 1990s or 2000, early 2000s standard. On a positive note, the internals aren't pressed stainless steel. We've got a solid milled 316L grade stainless steel internals. So, top side, underside and flanks have been deburred and chamfered well. No sharp edges. Centre section doesn't have any sharp corners. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Dreadful. Look at the amount of play. Lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Play in every single direction. Rattles. Dreadful tolerances. This says to me 0 to €100 Ali's dive level. This doesn't say to me 70 years of brand heritage, €297. This is nowhere near San Martin level of quality control, build quality and tolerances at 300. Centre hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to autofocus. Dreadful. Lateral side to side play, up and down play, longitudinal play, play in every direction, rattles, dreadful. Finally, let's check the right hand hinge pin. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. It's actually a spring bar. Rattles, sloppy, play in every direction. Cumulative effect is left hand, centre and right hand hinge pins have excess play. And of course it rattles, it's sloppy. My concern with this, the reason why I'm being so heavily critical of this, it's not just the price point. The problem is, my concern is long-term durability because, for example, in the centre pin, we've got a stainless steel pin, which should be an interference friction fit, but it's not. And then the ends of it are riveted over, rather like rivets. The problem when you have an undersized pin going through an oversized hole is the hole becomes ovalized with daily wear and tear, and it puts the pin into excess shear load. The shear load then inevitably causes the pin to shear. Either the rivets on the end they wear off in the elongated hole and then the pin falls out, alternatively the pin just simply snaps. It shears in half because it can't take the excess shear load, the excess play, as you can see. Because this amount of play causes excess shear load on the pin in an elongated hole or an oversized diameter hole, and of course eventually the metal fatigues and then it breaks. This is my concern. How long is it going to be before the left-hand sloppy hinge pin, the centre sloppy hinge pin, or the right-hand sloppy spring bar fails? Short length of time is the answer. So, if this were below €100 and an Alice dive piece, one could be magnanimous and expect some production cost-cutting measures. This is €297. It's on the cusp of 300 San Martin level. It's dreadful. This does not say to me 70 years of brand heritage since 1955. This says to me €0 to €100 level of quality. Dreadful. On a positive note, beautiful lustre to the top side, underside and flanks. Satin finishing has a nice fine grained finish. So visually it looks aesthetically pleasing. Does snap shut with a nice positive click. And of course the flip lock closes with a nice positive click. 2 button push triggers work okay. They really need to update this clasp. It's not good enough in 2025. So let's test the screw down crown execution. Coin edge finish, screw down crown. Mirror polished domed cap. And it's embossed with the Seagull S emblem to a good standard. Rather than having an S for Seagull, I think they should have used the Seagull emblem. So just to clarify what that is, that's the Seagull emblem above Seagull. Aesthetically pleasing. That would fit on a crown if they embossed it. But they haven't. What they've done is they've simply used an S rather than the Seagull emblem. And it doesn't really add continuity of design, because if you look at the flip lock clasp, they've engraved the Seagull emblem, as you can see, which looks good. And that matches the Seagull emblem on the dial above the Seagull logo. So that makes sense. But then they've embossed this Seagull S. But that's not seen anywhere else. It's not seen on the packaging, as you can see. Not seen on the warranty card leaflet or owner's instruction manual leaflet. So, and they haven't done it on the case back either. So it really doesn't match. There's no continuity of design, and they really need to, if they're going to use the emblem, the point I'm making is use it on the dial, use it on the crown, use it on the clasp, use it on the case back. That is continuity. The emblem used in all 4 places, which is the industry standard. What you don't see is a completely irrelevant, different emblem embossed on the crown to the dial, the case back, and of course the clasp. So that breaks the continuity. Mistake after mistake. Right, so let's test the screw down crown nonetheless. So it's under proportion for starters. And the problem with this piece is it just says to me mistake after mistake after mistake. And I'm bringing them all to your attention because this is what you need to consider when you're purchasing this for €297 versus a San Martin for the same price. So, crown is undersized. The reason why I say it's undersized, it does have the correct proportions to the crown guards. That's not the problem. But this crown looks like a low profile crown one would see on a daily wear piece or a dress piece. It's not large enough for a dive piece. This is a large head of the piece. We're not looking at a 39 or a 40 here. This is a 43 head of the piece. It needs to have a large crown. So it's undersized. It's low profile. The benefit is one could argue, well, when you flex the wrist, it's not going to dig into the back of the hand, but it's recessed beneath the overhang. Now, to remind you, when I say overhang, case is 43, bezel is 43.8. So we have 0.4 millimeters overhang on the left flank, 0.4 millimeters overhang on the right flank. Problem is the 0.4 on the right flank actually overhangs the crown because they've got these abhorrent flats, as you can see, at the triangle 15, 30 and 45. So when you've got it aligned, this flat now actually hides part of the crown because it projects proud by 0.4 millimeters. So it actually hides the low profile crown. Problem with that is it makes it more difficult to get purchased with your index finger and thumb. Index finger goes below, thumb goes on top, but you can't get a good grip. That's the point I'm making because you've got this mirror polish flat at 15 minutes or at 3 o'clock, and you try and get a grip of it with your thumb, and your thumb can't get a grip of it because they've got this proud mirror polish slab, as you can see, this flat instead of scalloped teeth. What they should have done was use a nailed bezel 360 degrees around it. Delete these flats at the triangle 15, 30 and 45. Get that correct. Make the bezel the same diameter as the case. 43 case, 43 bezel, not a 43.8. Because having 0.4 overhang on the left and right hand flanks doesn't help the piece. It's detrimental. Doesn't improve the grip of it, doesn't improve the tactile feel of it. And of course, visually, it doesn't look good. But the point is, now makes it hard to get a grip of this undersized crown, but we'll do it anyway. So, silky smooth, sublime screw down crown execution. On a positive note, unscrews freely. So the interface of the internal thread and the external thread mesh correctly. So they've done a good job of machining it. Credit where credit's due. When it's unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the Seagull caliber ST2130 automatic, which is a clone of the ETA 2824-2. Architecture of both movements is the same, however there's a notable difference. The caliber ST2130 has 28 joules, the ETA 2824-2, which it is a clone of with the same architecture, has 25 respectively, so additional 3 joules. Feels the same to manually wind, so in terms of smoothness, there's no discernible difference. This feels the same as manually winding a Salita SW200-1, an ETA 2824-2, or a Soprod caliber P024. It does feel smoother than the HK Precision Technology PT5000, which is also a clone of the ETA 2824-2. That feels more rough and gritty, feels stiffer. Smoothness is good, doesn't feel too stiff, feels the same as an SW200-1. Putting it out to the first click is the quick set date complication. So when you rotate the crown clockwise, the quick set date clicks over to the next day of the month. The single and the double Arabic numerals align correctly in the framed date window, which is good. Font is high definition and crisp, it's not too thick and blurry. It's just a shame we have the incorrect magnification of 1.5 as I've detailed, so I won't labour the point. But the problem is this large silver framing creates a shadow, and of course it's compounded by the 1.5 times, but clicks over with a nice positive click. The clicking does feel heavier than on an SW200-1. Feels more like a heavier action of the NH35A, which you'll all be familiar with. It's got that heavy clicking sensation. Feels heavier than a Miyota 9015. Feels heavier than on an SW200-1. But I like it, that's the point. Putting it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the contrasting red arrowhead tip to the second hand, you can see it stop dead, so therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the caliber ST2130 automatic. So we're now in the time setting position. Feels smooth, doesn't feel rough or gritty, doesn't feel stiff, feels exactly the same as an SW200-1 or an ETA 2824-2 or a P024 respectively. Feels smoother than the gears in a PT5000, which feel more stiff because they're not as refined. The build quality, quality control, materials and finishing aren't as good. So the PT5000 feels stiffer. This really does feel exactly the same as an SW200-1, standard grade or an elaborate grade. Feels good. Minimal backplay on the syringe minute hand. When you rotate the coin edge crown, which is undersized, there is minimal backplay, so you don't have to take up lots of slack. It's similar amount of slack in the SW200-1, so that's good. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and the contrasting red arrowhead tip begins to sweep around the dial at the characteristic 4 Hz sweep, because it runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour versus a 3 Hz sweep, which stutters or judders, as per the NH35A, running at 21,600 vibrations per hour, respectively. So, quick set date complication works well, time setting works well, hacking works well, manual winding works well. Feels smooth, a level above the PT5000, that's the point. Let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup, there's a perfect interface, the threads mate, they pick up well. So, perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. 200 metres of hermetic seal is strong specification, that's good. So, screw down crown execution is silky smooth, but it's just undersized. And of course, this is compounded by this large slab, this rectangle, this smooth part on the scalloped bezel. Dreadful. They should delete it, and they should reduce the diameter of the bezel from 43.8 down to 43, as per the case. That would delete the overhang, and deleting these triangle 15, 30 and 45 smooth slabs, that would actually make the crown more grippy and tactile. But there we are. Right, so let's look at the Caseback. Solid 316L grade stainless steel Caseback. It's hydraulically pressed, so it's a forged Caseback. So to remind you, usually Casebacks are either forged or alternatively engraved. Now, this is a forged Caseback. You'll know from my previous reviews, I prefer forged Casebacks, which are hydraulically pressed. So why is that? With an engraved Caseback, when you have deep embossing or engraving, it creates sharp edges. Now, this is beneficial when you have a forged Caseback because that deletes the sharp edges. You can have very deep embossing, which is then mirror polished, and a satin finished background, which for example can be concentric CNC lathed or machined or matte bead blasted effect. But the point is, the raised sections, the embossing, has a nice 3D effect, as you can see. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. but the benefit is it doesn't feel sharp or rough against the wrist, which would diminish the comfort level and feel good factor. So circumference is mirror polished to a flawless finish. The milled slots are deburred and chamfered very well, no sharp edges. The circumference is engraved with the full reference number of the blue version of the Ocean series, and of course the reference number of the piece. Now, centre section has this star emblem, and we've got enamel blue paint which is inlaid, so it does look good. Quality of the caseback is excellent. Now, what I like about it is 200 metres is strong specification, hermetic seal's good, low profile. Had they used the NH35A, this would be a deep bubble back caseback with 200 metres, but it's flat. And I like it because this makes the piece, although it's large diameter at 43, it's actually a very flat caseback, the kind of flat caseback one would expect with a Miyota 9015 powered piece or an SW200-1. So this is good. I like the flat caseback, and it does feel very smooth despite the deep raised embossing. Quality mirror polishing is good. Quality of the enamel blue paint is done to a very good standard. The mirror polishing to the stars is good. It looks good. I like it. Feels good, looks good. Male end links, they've made a mistake because they haven't used quick release stainless steel spring bars. Of course, they've used standard spring bars. That's going to make it more difficult to remove the oyster style bracelet. They should have used quick release stainless steel spring bars because we don't have pierced lugs, which would mean you could depress the spring bar externally. Underside head of the piece has flawless mirror polishing. The underside to the crown guards, which are angular, have bevels, so that deletes the sharp corners. The undercuts to the flanks have large mirror polished bevels, and the tips of the lugs have bevels, so no sharp corners. Good quality finishing to the head of the piece, which is good. Just a shame they didn't use female pivoted end links and also quick release stainless steel spring bars, so error after error. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist, so just bear with me. I'm going to remove my Concord 40 and exchange it. Now I haven't sized the bracelet, and this will fit a very large wrist size, even up to 9 inches wrist size. Even with my large 8-inch wrist, I can easily slide 2 fingers beneath the flip-lock clasp and bracelet at all times. This indicates this would fit a very large wrist size of even 9 inches plus. There are enough removable links on the 6 side and the 12 side to size this down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size. So the range of size or the variation is 6-inch minimum with all the links removed, up to 9-inch plus, as you can see. Plenty of holes, which is good. They just need a half link on the 6 and a half link on the 12 side, because what they've got is these are actually 3/4 links. They're not half links. They are shorter than the full size links, but they're not half links. They're more like 3/4 links. Adding or subtracting a full link or a 3/4 link doesn't give the desired fit, because often the bracelet will feel too tight or too loose. Really, this needs a half link on the 6 and a half link on the 12. Also needs a longer clasp, solid milled 316L grade stainless steel clasp. If they're going to use this vintage style with the holes in the flanks, it needs to have 5, not the minimum 3. And of course heavier gauge, because the problem is this pressed stainless steel clasp is very light gauge. And when you have a very long and wide head of the piece, 43 diameter by 49.8 is large, and a bracelet with a lot of meat, 22 to 20, this light gauge doesn't balance it. It feels very lightweight. And really with a large head of the piece with heft and a thick bracelet with width, you really need a solid mill clasp with a long length on it and a ratcheting micro adjustment mechanism to add some meat to it. Because on wrist, the problem is this feels very top heavy. It's excessive meat because with all the links, now one has to appreciate it's a very long bracelet. Even I would remove 4 or 5 links with my large 8-inch wrist. But nonetheless, 195 grams is 45 grams in excess of the sweet spot of 150. You'll know from my previous reviews, I often refer to this. 150 grams is the sweet spot, regardless of whether a piece is 40, 41 or even 43 like this piece, regardless of the taper, if it's 20 to 16 or 22 to 18. 150 is the sweet spot. Gives a nice feeling of wrist presence, gives a feeling of heft, gives a feeling of quality, which is desirable, but it doesn't feel too heavy. That's the point. Truth is, this feels far too heavy at 195 grams. Even on my large 8-inch wrist, it doesn't feel balanced. It feels like a very heavy, thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel, which is too long and also too wide. But then it's compounded by this bracelet having far too much meat. 22 to 20 is straight and parallel. Doesn't have an aggressive taper as per 20 to 16, or the alternative 22 to 18 industry standard. That would delete a lot of the meat. Now, as I've detailed, problem is there are 2 main problems. Male links have these large rectangular slabs in the centre, which visually looks dreadful because they've mirror polished it like a mirror. And then you've got this large gap beneath the tips of the angular lugs, as you can see. Because the end link, due to this long rectangle slab in the centre, the end link in the bracelet can't pivot. You permanently have this large gap between the tips of the lugs, the end of the case, and the end link in the bracelet. And it never closes up, regardless of your wrist size. When you flex the wrist, you've always got this gap. Had they used a female pivotal end link, that would have made the end link in the bracelet pivot beneath the tips of the lugs. That's the reason why female pivotal end links are used on a plethora of watches by a plethora of brands. It's far more beneficial. It will fit you better if you have a 6 to 7. It will fit you better if you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. Doesn't matter about the case size, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. Female pivotal end links give the better fit. That's the reality of it. Dreadful decision. Other problem is, as I've detailed, look at the thickness. These links are far too thick at the spring bar end, and they're far too thick at the flip lock clasp end. The whole bracelet has too much meat. So you've got the thickness problem, compounds the meat on the bracelet in the width, the taper 22 to 20. This bracelet is 45 grams, far too heavy. This should be 150 grams, even with a long bracelet like this. Had they used a 22 to 18 taper with thinner profiles, thinner thickness, that would take the weight of this piece down by 45 grams, from 195 to the sweet spot of 150. Now, we're not looking at a new microbrand here. We're looking at a brand that's been making watches in China since 1955. They have 70 years of experience getting it correct. And it's absolutely dreadful to see this kind of mistake after mistake. No female pivotal end links. Lug to lug is 1.5 too long. Sorry, 1.8 too long. It's even worse. It's nearly 2 millimeters too long. Too much thickness, too much meat on the taper, and this light gauge in 2025. None of this says to me 70 years of experience. None of it says to me €297. So truth is, comfort level is dreadful. Feel good factor is dreadful. One could enhance it by putting this on a rubber strap, for example, because of course that would delete the meat of the bracelet and that would reduce it to circa 100 grams. And even though it's a large piece at 43 and a long piece at 49.8, on a rubber strap, such as an FKM floor rubber strap, yes, that would then be comfortable, but it would be a top-heavy piece, not due to the thickness, but just simply due to the diameter and also the length. The main mistake they've made with dimensions is not actually the 43. It's the lug to lug. For a 43, the maximum really should be 48, which is the sweet spot. This is nearly 2 millimeters too long at 49.8. Even on my large 8-inch wrist, you can see the problem. We've got overhang on the tips of the lugs. Even on my large 8-inch wrist, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. These are nearly 2 millimeters too long, the length of the case. The angular lugs project too far on my wrist. You can see they overhang. And it's really noticeable. You can see this case is 1.8 too long. Had they made it 48, of course, it would fit better. Had they used female pivotal links, it would fit better. Had they used thinner links, it would fit better. It's just error after error after error, and it's just really disappointing. But in terms of colour tone, I really do like the blue dial. It's like a Tiffany blue. I prefer it with a ceramic bezel insert or sapphire bezel insert, fully lume with BGW9, but the blue tone of the dial is the best option of the three. It is available in blue, green and red. This is the better version. And aesthetically, it is a pleasing piece, but it just disappoints. Every time you look at it, you see an error, because 1.5 times Cyclops magnifier is an error. Aluminium bezel inset is an error. Flats on the scalloped bezel at the triangle 15, 30 and 45, error. And then, of course, no female pivotal end links, too much meat on the bracelet, case is too long. It's just error after error after error. Thoroughly disappointing. So wrist presence is good, dominates the wrist, of course it's 43, but far too long at 49.8. On a positive note, it's 12.8, so it will easily slip underneath the shirt cuff because it's below the 13mm sweet spot by 0.2, which is okay. So let's do a lume test, and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. So this uses BGW9 on the syringe handset and BGW9 on the applied indices, and also the triangle, which is in filled with BGW9 on the aluminium bezel insert. As you can see, they've even got this wrong. It's actually C3 Super Lume Nova used on the triangle. They haven't even matched the BGW9 used on the dial and hands with the bezel. Now, this is subjective. I appreciate some collectors do not mind a mismatch or two different colour looms used, C3 and BGW9, for example, on the dial and handsets. But my thinking is this. I prefer a bezel, dial and hands to use the same colour, monochrome, either blue BGW9 throughout, alternatively green C3 throughout. What I don't like to see is two different colours on the bezel, the dial or the hands. Same colour throughout. So just bear with me, I'm going to charge it once again to its absolute maximum because I want to check the potency of the exciter in all three places. So disappointing. Initially, the potency of the exciter looks good. It looks good on the BGW9. On the triangle, on the aluminium bezel insert, the C3, it's weaker. So what this tells me is we're looking at less number of layers. We're looking at 2 to 3 or possibly 3 to 4. But on the green triangle on the bezel, it's definitely not 5 to 6 because you can see the potency of the exciter lacks power, and what's happening is it's fading very quickly, exponentially with time. Again, we've got another problem, and this is the reason why the hands look blue tinted rather than white. The syringe hands clearly have more layers of BGW9 applied. I think we're looking at 5 to 6 on the hands, which is fair enough. That's the industry standard. The indices clearly have 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 because you can now see there's a difference in the potency of the exciter. What I'm talking about, look at the brightness of the indices, look at the brightness of the hands. The hands are clearly brighter than the dial, aren't they? Now, that's the reason. More layers of BGW9 increase the potency of the exciter. 5 to 6 is the optimum. On the indices, we're clearly looking at 2 to 3 because they're fading much quicker. And in daylight, that's the reason why we have that mismatch, because remember I told you, on the indices they look white, and on the syringe hands it looked like the Lume had a blue tint to it. It didn't look pure white. And I said they should have applied more layers on the indices because that would then give the blue tints to the indices, the same as the hands. The blue tint isn't necessarily detrimental in daylight if they match, because we're all familiar with watches that have, for example, cream and white indices and hands that just don't match. It's acceptable, or one could be magnanimous below €100. Brands get it wrong. But when you get to a low tier piece at 296, for example, it's not acceptable. That's San Martin level, and San Martin are getting it right with BGW9, 5 to 6 on the dial, 5 to 6 on the bezel, 5 to 6 on the hands. You can see the problem. Initially, they look like they match, don't they? Same colour tone. BGW9 on the dial looks the same as the BGW9 on the hands. Potency of the exciter looks the same. But I'm just going to let it fade again. And you can see the C3 green triangle will fade quicker than the dial and hands. The indices are already beginning to fade quickly. And exponentially with time, as time goes on, the indices are going to fade far quicker than the syringe hands. Syringe hands actually look okay. I think they're 5 to 6. But definitely the indices and the triangle on the bezel, they're 2 to 3. This is dreadful. We are not looking at 70 years of brand heritage since 1955 here. We're not looking at €297 of quality. This is saying to me, Addy's Dive, actually Addy's Dive, credit where credit's due, I keep referencing them because they are below €100, but the reality is they use 5 to 6 on the dial and hands. They actually deserve credit for that. Pagani Design would be a better comparison because on the PD1661 Submariner Datamage, they use Luminova, which is dreadful. And as you can see, now you can see the problem. So this is really disappointing at €297. They really need to upgrade that. It's a main negative I want you to be mindful of. So let's discuss the movement use because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So this is powered by the Seagull Caliber ST2130 automatic, which of course is made in China, in-house by Seagull. The ST2130 is a clone of the ETA 2824-2. The architecture of both calibers is the same. However, the ST2130, as I've detailed, has an additional 3 joules. It has 28 joules versus the 25 joules of the aforementioned, and it differs from the SW200-1, which has 26 respectively, but the architecture is the same. Runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. Benefit of that is smooth sweep to the second hand, which is aesthetically pleasing. Has hand winding and hacking, which are useful complications and they work well. Also has a quick set date complication, which as I've demonstrated works well. 40-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. Stated accuracy of the ST2130 is plus or minus 15 to plus or minus 30 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. Comparable to the standard grade of SW200-1, standard grade of ETA 2824-2, standard grade of P024. However, there's something to note. The SW200-1 is available in 4 grades: standard grade, elaborate grade, chronometer grade and top grade respectively. Also, the ETA 2824-2 is available in the same 4 quality grades. Seagull don't do that. They only make the Seagull caliber ST2130 automatic in one single grade. So which grade does it compare to? The aforementioned. Well, the ST2130, the bridges are decorated with pelage finishing. They don't use blued screws. However, the pelage finishing upgrades it from the standard grade of SW200-1 more like the Elaboré grade. So that also has pelage finishing, albeit it does also have blued screws for the decoration. So in terms of quality, build quality, finishing materials and accuracy, I regard it as equal to the Elaboré grade of SW200-1, the Elaboré grade ETA 2824-2 or an Elaboré grade P024. How does it compare to the HK Precision Technology PT5000, which is also made in China? It's a level above it. In terms of build quality, quality control, materials, finishing, and most importantly, reliability. My opinion of the PT5000 has changed over the years, in the last 5 years of reviewing over 500 pieces on my channel. The reason why it's changed is, initially, I was very impressed with the PT5000 made by HK Precision Technology because at a German observatory, it attained the equivalent of COSC chronometer limits. Now, to clarify, it cannot be COSC chronometer certified in Switzerland because the PT5000 is not Swiss made as per an SW200-1. It's made in China, and COSC only certifies Swiss made calibers. So what they did was, HK Precision Technology, is they took a caliber to the German observatory and it was certified as a chronometer in Germany versus being Swiss certified by COSC or METAS, which are the two industry standards. And it did attain chronometer accuracy of -4 to +6, which is excellent, regulated in 5 positions. So that really impressed me. When the PT5000 was released, I was highly impressed by chronometer accuracy and it being a clone of the ETA 2824-2. However, as time went on, year after year after year, I began to see more reports from collectors having problems with it. For example, it felt rough to manually wind, it felt stiff and also rough and gritty. And the other problem was sometimes it would seize up because of lack of lubrication. And the main problem HK Precision Technology made PT5000s have is incorrect lubrication. It's the luck of the draw. If you get a good one, which is well lubricated correctly, of course, they're highly accurate, they're reliable, and they're equal quality to an SW200-1. However, if you have bad luck and you get one that hasn't been lubricated correctly, they seize up, and of course they fail. And that's the problem with the PT5000. They're accurate, build quality is good, lubrication is variable. Can be good, can be bad. It's the luck of the draw. So my opinion of the PT5000 has declined as a result. In 2020, I thought it was excellent. Now I think it's unreliable. This ST2130 is more reliable. It's equal reliability to a standard or an Elaboré grade SW200-1. Manual winding feels smoother, doesn't have the lubrication variance or unreliability of a PT5000. Seagull always lubricate them correctly. The manual winding feels smooth. Hacking works well. Setting the time works well. Really, it's equal quality to an SW200-1 Elaboré grade. That's how I see it. It's a level above the PT5000. If I had the choice at the same price points, a PT5000 version of this or an ST2130 version, I would opt for this. Of course, the SW200-1 would be my first choice, but they're not going to be using a Swiss-made caliber in this Seagull piece because Seagull make calibers themselves. So it's a good movement. Accurate, reliable, build quality, quality control, materials and finishing are good. I like the pelage finishing on the bridges as per an Elaboré grade SW200-1. Are there any negatives to it? None whatsoever. It's a good movement. ±15 to ±30 is a wide accuracy range, but I'm pleased to report Seagull are doing a good job of regulating it in 5 positions. This one is actually running at +5 seconds per day. +5 is within chronometer accuracy of -4 to +6. So really it's equal to chronometer grade accuracy of a PT5000, alternatively SW200-1. It's good. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So, low tier piece, which is €0 to €500 price point, is $349, which is €297 respectively. I'm going to declare it poor quality and I'm going to declare it poor value at €297. The truth is, there are better alternatives in the low tier between 0 and 500. San Martin at 300 euro price point, cannot be beaten. And overall, the build quality, quality control, materials and finishing are better. For example, at that price point, one can see a Miyota 9039 or 9015, which is better than the ST2130. And also, they get everything right, that's the point, because female pivotal end links, screw pins used in the bracelet, solid mill ratcheting micro adjustment clasp, correct taper 20-16 for example, and of course things like flats on the bezel, they're corrected, they use scalloped bezels, and everything about it down to the Cyclops magnifier on the San Martin is 2.5 times, not this mistake of 1.5, and we don't have things like this colour tone mismatch, blue tinted on the hands, white on the indices. Mistake after mistake after mistake, undersized crown. I mean, I could go on and on and on and labour the points, but you've got it. There are better alternatives, and really the truth is, this rattle in the bracelet, the rattle in the end links, and of course, as I've shown you, the rattle in the clasp. This does not say to me 70 years of brand heritage. This does not say to me 297 euro price point. So this is going head to head with the San Martin at this price point. And the truth is, the San Martin beats it. So, poor quality, poor value at €297. I cannot recommend it to you for consideration, but that's the way it is. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Seagull Ocean series, reference 816321523A. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.